Drive slow, homie.
All right, guys, so we're back. We grabbed some lunch. We're heading back to the office now at Galvanize. Whoop, shout out. So once again, this is part 2 of the Daily Dose discussion. This beautiful, beautiful Wednesday, talking over the National Anthem protest and how we view and our standpoints on that. So jumping back in, Alex, Malick, continue on, brothers.
Yeah, so what do we do now?
I was saying that I think based on the immediacy of the response to Trump by most of the NFL, based on Trump's very disrespectful means of shooting down the protests, that the NFL and its players mostly support that kind of expression, whether or not they agree with it.
Right.
And
So,
because of that, I think protests moving forward, the continued kneeling, would be still adhering back to the origin of it, which was Kaepernick saying, right now this flag represents a broken promise.
right, and I think I just remembered what I wanted to say. I saw a post on Facebook by one of my good friends, where she kind of she shared a tweet. I think the tweet was a meme about how kneeling is now, the symbol, like you see all these resist banners all over the place now these days since Trump's ascension to the presidency. And I think what I'm afraid of that might happen here is this whole kneeling thing might get gentrified, right? It may become the new cool thing for liberals and fake liberals alike. There are many of them out here supposedly all for the culture, but they're really not.
Yeah.
Really not. Austin is a great example of a place in America that's just overflowing with fake liberals. White people who are supposedly very open-minded, but don't have any black friends. Never been to a
Real
club.
black friends, not I have a black friend.
Right.
Yeah.
You see that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
All the time in the
Oh, yeah.
city. Especially like tech, for instance, in the tech space. You see a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion and all this other stuff. Whether it's racial diversity or diversity of thought. But there's a lot of that. There's a lot of hypocrisy that goes around in these circles. And, I would be personally very sad if kneeling became this now new cool thing. That people are going to do to sort of symbolize their dislike or resistance to this Trump presidency.
So I want to ask from both of you, what steps or what things, like what type of progression do you guys see from here on the side of people who are initiating these protests and saying, like, these are the wrongs that we're experiencing? Like, what can we see and call as real progress going forward with this?
I think we need to go back to the exact issue that Colin Kaepernick was trying to call attention to, which is impunity when it comes to police action, police brutality, and killings. That's really what that was the straw that broke the camel's back, as far as I understand. You have all these things that are happening across the nation, and they're indicative of bigger issues, obviously. When it comes to black people, black people in this country have never, in my opinion, felt included in the conversation about America. We've always felt like second-class citizens. Whether other people want to believe it or not, and people can believe whatever they want to believe, but you can't tell me as a black person in this country how to feel about the shit that's we've gone through, because you haven't been through it. You don't know, and I can't tell you otherwise. I can't tell you about your own experience. So I think what I would want to happen is for people to really be open to dialogue and open to learning and understanding people's perspective and practically, speaking practically, we need some sort of police reform in this country. We really need to, Obama had this 21st century, I guess, convention or symposium or whatever it was, regarding community policing, right? That needs to be, pervasive across America. You can't have police, officers policing certain neighborhoods that they don't understand. Like, there's no cultural competency. How can you police somebody you don't really know?
Right.
Because when things really go bad, when shit hits the fan, you're gonna resort to, your training. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the result of the training that police officers have been getting for decades.
Right. I mean, when you look at police forces as being generally installed into heavily poor black communities, and that becomes their view of what a normal black person is.
Right.
And then our media reflects that, whether it be in pop culture or fictional, television and film, music, all of it. It reflects that view as though it's true. And we saw that in the presidential debates last year. Hillary Clinton as the candidate for the Democratic Party, supposedly the party that represents minority interests, the dialogue that surrounded black rights spoke of black people as though they're all poor and live in the ghetto, which is simply false. Right. Now, historically, it's where you get a lot of this origin of the view from modern post-slavery in America. Is this policing they've been trained and indoctrinated into that view,
right?
And that spills over into what we see today,
right? And
continues to cause a lot of problems.
Right.
There's something you touched in there about one thing that I want to expand on is, I think one of the major issues we have to progress is that we can't even agree on basic objective facts. If you don't agree that every individual who's black in America experiences their own personal subjective experiences of racism, there's not a lot that you can do with that.
Right.
But where you can find objective evidence is look at power. Okay, even if white people are going to become no longer a racial majority, and Hispanics may be, look at the power, the possession of power. Look at the number of seats in the Senate and the House of Representatives, right, and your state governments and the presidency. I mean,
and don't get me wrong, we all love white people. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and let me expand
upon the ones with the big asses.
God damn, Malick, boy,
we're cutting that part.
We love people in general, and what these two awesome gentlemen are bringing up, and what I want to highlight and circle back on is that in the Austin community itself, I have a lot of friends from growing up who are now part of APD, who are part of San Marcos PD, and for the conversations I have with them, and I hear about the trainings, and sorry guys, poor camera setup as you see, the training that they talk to me that they go through and how they are prepared to handle situations, it's not to a degree to where people can feel like they are equipped properly when it comes to a situation happening. Now, of course, you get your basic training, you come up on someone, you can arrest them, blah, blah, blah. The shit that we all know from what we ideology, like, understand of how cops interact in the community. But when it comes to something like a situation where you have a African-American male that you pulled over and he's asking you continuously, why did you pull me over? And whenever you're explaining to them, or you're not, carefully explaining, or even fully making sure they understand why you pulled them over, and you feel that they're aggressive, and now you're talking about you're at a point to where you fear for your life. My perspective of that is like, you as a police officer signed up for this duty. You are the person who is supposed to keep your calm in this situation and even learn how to diffuse the situation. And instead, I feel that when I meet counterparts who are officers in different countries, from London, and we had a friend come here who was an officer out in London, who told me, like, hey, when we have situations happen, we usually don't even carry weapons on us. We're usually having to handle a situation by diffusing it and getting people to calm down and de-escalate it. And I'm like, I've rarely seen a lot of cops in Austin that have de-escalated situations whenever something has happened. It's always an aggressive type of tone taken with people, and it's like, how do you think someone who's already in an aggressive state is going to handle working with another aggressor? They're going to become more aggressive themselves. And then you get to the point to where you have two adults who are in a state now that's heightened, and you have situations where shit like this is going to happen. Not necessarily, you know, an individual. I'm sorry, we have somebody like who doesn't know that my hazard lights mean they can go around me. Thank you. Thank you. Whoa, that's the smart person for the day. Whoa.
And we're in the middle turn lane.
Yeah, but you can still. We're actually on the section that's blocked off.
And I want to say something to kind of piggyback off of what you just said. Like that's the difference. That's the difference when you're talking about de-escalation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very important, but de-escalation, when you really think about it, you got to think about it in a context, right? And then this is the real problem. When the U.S. sends soldiers overseas, right? Like one of the rules, you know, rules of engagement. I think one of the most important ones. I've never been in the military, but I have friends who are in the military or have been. Is, you know, when shit really hits the fan or is about to, the first thing you need to do is to try to de-escalate the situation, right? Because the context requires it, right? Because you don't want to anger the local population. You don't want to create a situation where, you know, it's you versus them. Because every single time that happens, you're going to lose. It's kind of like that movie, you know, which is dramatization, but it speaks to that, Black Hawk Down, right? When they got to a point where they had an entire city up at their throat, it became a huge disaster. And they had to find a way to get these people out safely, out of there. Right? Which is, you know, all about the context. In America, you know, we look at police like they can't do any wrong because, you know, they're out there protecting us, all this other stuff, you know, all these really nice messages, but we all understand that racism exists. We understand people have their own prejudices. People have, you know, these made up ideas about, you know, a certain people, right? But if you look at the context in the greater scheme of things, if every time, you know, a police officer shoots somebody, he gets put on administrative leave, right? Like these protests that are happening are like a new thing. Historically, you know, when black people were being mistreated by police, no one would protest. I think maybe the Rodney King thing was one of the very first instances of that happening, and that was an outlier at the time.
Because it was caught on video.
Right, because it was caught on video. So the context with which police work in America allows impunity, because you shoot somebody, you get put on administrative leave, right? If you get indicted, you know, and that's a big if, you know, you've got a jury of your peers who, for the most part, have a very positive view of you and the work you do, right? Because a lot of times, you know, there are people that look like you, right? And you know, on top of that, you know, you're imbued with authority and you know, this sort of you know, the benefit of the doubt, right? Because people are going to believe you because you've been trained, you know, you work for the state, you're an enforcer of the law, right? If shit goes wrong, your version of the events of what happened, what transpired, usually will tend to trump a civilian's version, right? So as a civilian, you have all of these things working against you, right? And on top of that, we're here in the most capitalistic country known to man, right? And for some reason, every time a cop, you know, mistreats somebody or murders somebody, who pays for that? The cop doesn't. It's the fucking community who does. It's the taxpayers' money that goes towards paying all of these settlements. So what does a cop, what does an officer, what kind of incentive does that officer have, you know, to de-escalate a situation? Or potentially not even, you know, pull out his weapon and shoot somebody who's running away from him, or, you know, somebody who's leaning down to pick up his wallet, or some fucking kid playing with a toy gun in a park. They don't have an incentive. There's no incentive. Maybe we should start hitting their pockets.
And once again, even with that being said, when you sign up to be an officer, my belief to my core is that you are assuming the role knowing that your life is on the line every day, and that you took great honor in that. The same way that we have our lovely men and women who serve this country, in the military who knew that they would be willing to take a bullet to represent this country overseas, you as an officer is taking that responsibility to protect us at home domestically and in your community. And whenever you get approached in a situation of something to that degree and you feel like things escalate in a very quick manner and you don't think of the way of how you can handle that, I don't think that there's enough training to help you understand how to handle stressful situations. A lot of these instances that I've seen of these cases where people have been, might as well call it bluntly, murdered in the streets off of a fear for their lives by a police officer, I can say that there were situations where I don't think personally an individual would fear for them lives with more context that they just would have communicated with that individual. You had the gentleman who was shot whenever he was reaching for his wallet after he actively communicated, I'm reaching for my wallet.
Right.
Out of that, I can understand that he's in a vehicle, the officer's outside the vehicle. Maybe, he saw something that he thought would have been a problem point, but he could have handled that a little bit differently, don't you think?
I agree.
Like I don't know how that would, and for my buddies,
that man deserved to die.
For my buddies who are officers, I know you guys are going to watch this because I'm going to actually pinpoint you directly. I want your opinions on this. It can either be through the thread below in this video, or else you can personally reach out to me. But I want to understand your perspectives with you guys being in the field to talk about that, so it's not just our opinion and perspective of how these situations go. But Alex, you had something that you were going to say earlier.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of circle back a few things that this touches on.
Okay.
As you guys have been talking about, it's the dynamic, the exchange between an officer and whoever it is that they're investigating or stopping or talking to. Two things in law and policy that we've seen is there was a move to start putting body cameras on officers. And to me, any resistance to that is officers taking personally the notion that their work shouldn't be checked, and at the same time, for some reason, missing the point that it can also protect them. Because there are instances that people want to say, well, not all cops and not all situations where somebody dies was it the officer's fault, and that's true, so this should help in that situation. But first and foremost, an officer's badge says to protect and serve for a reason, because those are their primary duties. They exist to keep the peace in our society. And if they are unable or unskilled or untrained enough to be able to not have death occur at a simple traffic stop where no gun or threat is made that can truly threaten their lives, I have a problem.
Yeah.
We have a problem. So that's one area that I don't see any objective argument that is good against cameras. I see no reason that we don't want that. The second thing that I think people need to pay attention to, and this gives me more reason to double down on saying I like that Trump was protested against by the NFL, even if it seems disingenuous to some. Keep in mind that he recently reinvigorated the access that police departments across the nation have to purchase militarized arms. Okay? Our police have just been permitted to be remilitarized. Where
Thanks,
that was
Jeff
something.
Sessions.
Right.
You fucking asshole.
And that is absolutely a Trump policy that he wanted done, that he wanted changed. And so, you know what? With that in mind, tying back to what we were talking about, how do we take progress? Well, we have to protest people like Trump. We have to protest the things that they say, because he's not just a mouth. What he said actually has support from what the policies he's implemented.
Yeah.
So that protest has to happen. Those protests need to continue to happen.
Yeah.
And the people that feel like it takes possession of the BLM protest that Kaepernick started, and though the NFL's statements mostly reverberate a message of unity with those who do protest, you know what? Unity with the protester is there are different levels of allies. Not everybody gets in and says, I'm going to support you and let you be the face of your own struggle, which is, I've seen these various continuums that say, you know, where you want where progress needs the help is to have black people be the face of the black struggle and that movement. Not everybody participates at that level. You do need some people that provide critical mass to say, we support this even if we're not as deep in this as you are.
Yeah.
And that kind of circles it all back to where this conversation started today, is to say that we need protest and we need policy change.
Yeah.
Top down, bottom up.
So, and a point to highlight on before we conclude this for the day, whenever we think about the Black Lives Matter movement, I want folks to understand that whenever we say Black Lives Matter, we're not excluding, this isn't just an exclusive thing to where our lives matter and Alex doesn't. Yeah, he got to go. So we'll wrap this bad boy up.
Just drive in. We should still have light, right?
Yeah. Hopefully we still got light and we got this weirdo in front of us. So, concluding this, man, it's not just an exclusive thing. We're inclusively saying all lives matter, and we know all lives matter.
Listen, I'm gonna keep it really real with y'all motherfuckers out there. Listen, if you don't understand what Black Lives Matter means, you've got really serious issues, like, as in like English comprehension issues, right? And just the ability to just think critically, just for a little bit. I mean, come on.
Or openly.
Or openly. Like,
yep.
That.
It's not a semantic. It's not a semantic exclusion of others.
It's not.
It's just
really
isn't.
not.
It is a simple statement that we matter. When
Right.
you when you order your own, I'm going to use an example I've heard in social media that's kind of funny. It's not as intense as Black Lives Matter and all the response to it.
Right.
So forgive if you don't like the levity. But if I go to a restaurant and say I'd like a hamburger, I'm not saying, oh, and this person I'm sitting with doesn't. Their order doesn't matter because I'm only ordering for me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying my needs.
Yeah.
You know what they call that? Assertive communication. You're speaking your own need. You're not excluding somebody else. You're not saying Black Lives Matter and others don't. That's an aggressive statement that's not being said. And there may be outliers who are saying that.
Yeah.
Whatever. There are always outliers to every movement, and not everybody is going to be as peaceable.
Right.
But
the bottom line is, I don't know, you guys can't see my beautiful face anymore, but the bottom line is this. The bottom line is this. If you feel, you know, some type of affront at just hearing the term Black Lives Matter, I don't think the problem is with the term itself. It's with you, right? If you feel defensive or feel attacked by someone saying that, you know, someone saying Black Lives Matter, right? You really need to reevaluate, you know, your own set of beliefs, and really take a look at your perspective, how you see life. Like, how do you see life? You need to ask yourself that question.
So, Black lives, white lives, Hispanic, any other ethnicity, race, creed, all lives matter at the end of the day, and we do know that. And I hate when I hear that moniker just brought up immediately as a response to Black Lives Matter. I also don't like when I hear Blue Lives Matter, because that shit's like, your occupation is your occupation.
Exist.
It doesn't.
There's nobody's born. You're not born blue. You put it on.
Yeah.
You can take it off. You don't take black off when you walk home.
Yeah, and that's damn. That's deep. You don't take black off when you walk home. I sure as hell know I don't. And I've been trying for years, man, until I was able to
this guy
accept
might.
myself. Look at this motherfucker back here. What the hell you doing back
Hey,
there,
man.
dog?
I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm from Mars. I was abandoned. I'm from here.
He's from Mars. He's abandoned. Yo, man, thank you guys for tuning in. I always want to continue to find more content and more conversations to have. I got a lot of more ideas of things we can discuss talking with these gentlemen today. Thank you both so much for jumping on and even indulging me in doing this cruise along while we converse and cruise. But this is day 3 of the Daily Dose, and we'll be catching up with you guys later. Take it easy. Peace.
Drive slow, homie.